In this video, we'll be doing a deep dive on the Large Leek ingredient in Pokémon Sleep and have a look at the various Pokémon that can have Large Leek as one of its ingredients. And so I'll go over the Berry Specialist, the Skill Specialist, and the Ingredient Specialist, and then we'll try to narrow down which Pokemon is the best Pokemon to farm some leeks. Now, there are actually quite a few Pokemon that are able to find large leeks. Now, the big difference between most of these is typically it shows up as the final ingredient slot, and at the very least, at the recording of this video, or at the time, the max level is 55, and the third ingredient comes around at level 60, so hopefully they'll come with an update in not too long where we can also unlock the leeks at level 60. Now, if we have a look at some of the ingredients Pokemon first, obviously Dugtrio, as many of you will know, is the main leek Pokemon. The reason for that is, if we bring up the handy pointer here, is not only is it an ingredient specialist, but it's also got the ingredients where you can find leek in the second slot. That is a big deal. There are very few Pokemon that can get the leek in the second slot. In fact, there are only two. The other Pokemon is Diglett. No, what am I saying? Ditto. There we go. So Ditto also has the potential double leek. The one problem though with Ditto that's actually not a problem is you can also roll for a Slowpoke tail. And a few of you may know already that my Ditto is this way. I've got the super lucky ingredient list on the Ditto. You can see I got the perfect ingredient list. In fact, we got oil, leek, and tails, and quite a decent amount of inventory, as well as the berry finding. So with the ingredient finding up nature, this is a pretty good Ditto. Now, if we go back to Dugtrio here, for the most part, you will be wanting to hunt in the Taupe Hollow area for the Diglett, but it is also possible to find it in the first area. Let's see here. Got green grass. I'm gonna list some of the resources in the video description if you are curious to read some more. We got green grass, Cyan Beach, and Taupe Hollow. And so it is a snoozing Pokemon, so it's just gonna be a long grind, but from now on and onwards, every time I see a Diglett, I'm just gonna catch it. And it being an ingredient specialist, you will want to catch it in the first stage so that you get some extra inventory. Upon evolution, you gain 5 extra in the inventory, so that's gonna be pretty nice. Alright, so let's have a look at some other Pokemon, because obviously Dugtrio is a pretty good Pokemon here, and you could potentially consider a couple Pokemon for leeks. It is one of the ingredients with the highest base rate. This one has got 185. I think the only ingredient that is higher is the Slowpoke tails, coming in at 350 something. So we have the Dugtrio, which is an ingredient specialist. We talked a little bit about Ditto. Mr. Mime is another Pokemon that comes to mind. And it has the leek available at the third slot. I think overall Mr. Mime is a good mixed ingredients Pokemon because you can have both tomatoes, potatoes, and leeks. Potentially you could consider doing it as the tomato farmer potentially, but overall Mr. Mime is very, very similar to Victreebel. It's also an ingredient specialist. It has the exact same ingredient list. I think at the very least, let's just double check. I'm not sure if all the values are the same. Yep, it's exactly the same. Now, Victreebel is a little bit faster if I'm not mistaken. Nope, it's the same, but the ingredient rate, there we go. Gotta do some comparison here. There it is. I knew there was a slight difference between these two, but for the most part, they're the exact same Pokemon. And especially with Lapis Lakeside having the Duranberry and the Mago Berry as its favorite berry types, it's just very strange with these two. And personally, I would prefer Charge Energy S above the Charge Strength S because it'll heal itself. And sometimes, even with my busted Sylveon, it is having some issues with the healing at times, while the Tyranitar is just fully healed at all times. So, the Victory Bell and Mr. Mime are the two other excuse me, are the two other ingredient specialists that also have the Leek in the third final slot. So got Ditto at 30, Dugtrio also at 30, and then we have Victory Bell and Mr. Mime at 60. Now aside from that, there aren't really any other ingredient specialists doing the leaks. I am thinking that at some point Farfetched's gotta make it to this game. Like, it's just calling for it, and then we can have Surfetched, and it can be an ingredient specialist, and it can just be leek, 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 in which case I'll be super excited. That would be very cool. But for now, we mostly have skill and berry specialist also yielding the leek. So we've had a look at actually all of the ingredient Pokemon. Let's have a look at some of the berry type specialists. So we got Meganium. This one's actually a good one. The only thing though with the Meganium is it is a berry specialist. So for the most part, you just want berry finding, ingredient down, and all that stuff. Low inventory, sneaky snacking. But Meganium has got a decent amount of ingredients that it can find. 3 honey is quite a lot. For the most part, when you find 2 ingredients of something, it'll just be there in the in the 30 slot, where you find, let's say, 2 tomatoes or 2 honey, something like that. Here it's 2 cacao and 2 honey. On a value basis, that is pretty high for a berry specialist. And the other thing to consider there is, if I'm not mistaken, the leek doesn't go in any desserts. You can have a look here. It would be odd anyway. Yeah, so leek is a salad and curry ingredient, and having cacao being the first ingredient and honey as an option, I think for the most part you want to stay away from the leek. Obviously it's not a determining factor if you get a good berry finding, but yeah, I'm not going to be looking for a large leek Meganium, to put it that way. The other berry specialist is Houndoom. We can have a look at Houndoom here. It's also got the large leek coming in at the 3rd slot. Herb and ginger, for the most part, are useful in most dishes, if I'm not mistaken. But the large leek, obviously, we just covered, is not for desserts. And with a 20% ingredient drop rate, it is decent. It is somewhat of a slow Pokemon, though. So I guess if you are able to find one with large leeks, I guess you could go for it. And aside from that, there aren't any berry specialists left. We've just got skill specialists. So we have a look at the Rolts. Rolts has a branched evolution line, so you can go either into the Gardevoir or into the Gallade. So we can have a look at Gardevoir first. Obviously they will have the same ingredient list, but if I'm not mistaken, some of these numbers are different. So it's also coming in at the 3rd ingredient slot. That's just going to be the staple here, with a large leek, it being a rare ingredient and a high value ingredient. And so aside from Gardevoir and Gallade, it's only Raikou left. Now, both of these are skill specialists, so the ingredient drops shouldn't be that interesting to you. For the most part, I would say Helping Bonus and Berry Finding S are better options in your analysis. And yeah, you can see that the ingredient rate here was more or less the same, but the skill trigger rate on the Gallade is a little bit higher. And then we have the Raikou. It is the Raikou event currently, and what's interesting with that is the 5 sub-skills on the Raikou, as well as the nature, is locked in for the very first encounter, but the ingredient rate, what am I saying? The ingredient list is random, which means you could be getting sausage, herb, and leek, triple sausage, and all that. And so for me personally, I'm hoping, even though the first Raikou is not amazing, it's pretty decent in my opinion, but it would be cool to get the bean, herb, and leek combo. Most likely I won't ever boost that up to level 60 anyway, so to an extent it doesn't matter. But overall, that is the ingredient list that I would hope for my main long-term Raikou. And so hope you enjoyed this deep dive on the Large Leek ingredients. If you have any questions, you can post those in the comments and I'll make sure to get back to you. And then if you overall are enjoying analyzing Pokemon and talking about Pokemon Sleep, I can highly recommend you to join the nirtheart Discord server, which you can find a link to in the video description. It is for YouTube members of the channel, at the very least in the first month. So if you just get into the server by becoming a YouTube member, you get to keep the access as long as you follow the rules. So that's something to check out. Let's see. Yesterday, it didn't want to recognize my thumbs up here. There we go. It's just showing up at the other side of my head here. This is awkward. Have a nice day, everyone.